October 2022 was supposed to be an exciting time for one Maryland couple. They were about to welcome their first child. The couple wanted to have a home birth, so they hired a midwife. But they claim their midwife provided insufficient care, which drastically changed their path to parenthood.
That midwife is now being investigated by state regulators and faces disciplinary charges. But the couple tells our Marcella Robertson their search for accountability and justice has been slow.
This memory box holds the few pictures Janelle and David Burns have of their baby.
Handprints.
Janelle gave birth to their son, who they named Onyx, in the living room of the couple's Crofton home in October 2022.
During my second trimester.
Onyx was stillborn.
This is all of our special memories.
The Burnses say the decision to go the home birth route came from the staggering maternal death rates for Black women in hospitals.
We didn't want to go into appointments and be rushed or have our health concerns not addressed, have pain not be addressed.
They interviewed 6 midwives. Kai Parker was their top choice. State records show at the time Parker was a licensed naturopathic physician and midwife in Maryland, even once the chair of the state's midwifery committee. And Parker was Black.
Because Kai is an African-American woman, I knew that she would understand the experience of, an African-American woman, and she's also a mother.
They paid Parker's $7,500 fee, but instead of the many appointments promised in their home birth package, the couple says they only saw Parker in person once for a prenatal checkup. All other appointments were virtual, with David checking for a heartbeat.
That pressure shouldn't have been on me as a first-time dad or my wife as a first-time mom. We paid a medical professional. She should come in and work the tools herself.
The couple didn't know it at the time, but Parker's license to practice naturopathic medicine expired during their pregnancy. When Janelle went into labor on October 29th, only Parker's midwifery license was still active. According to medical records the couple gave WUSA9, Parker documents arriving at the couple's home at about 11 p.m. on the 29th. Maryland law requires all midwives to have an assistant with them for home births. They say Parker came alone.
Nobody.
It was just her by herself.
In Maryland, the Board of Nursing oversees midwives, while the Board of Physicians regulates naturopathic doctors. In complaints to both agencies, the couple details the moment Parker had trouble finding their baby's heartbeat.
When I got into the birthing pool, she checked Onyx's heart tone with a Doppler at that moment. That's when she said to us that she was having troubles finding his heart tone.
David says Parker asked him to try.
She said sometimes, her fathers have better luck.
But midwifery regulations state 911 should be called at the first sign of fetal distress.
At some point, when I put the Doppler on her, we heard something, and she said, "There we go."
On October 30th, Parker documents Chanel's water breaking at 1:55 p.m., then seeing meconium, a baby's fecal matter that can cause an infant to suffocate. Parker calls 911.
She told us not to panic, that she needed to call the EMT or the ambulance, call 911, so that they can be here to resuscitate Onyx if necessary.
Janelle gave birth to Onyx just as EMTs arrived. He was unresponsive.
We're both trying to call out to Onyx and tell him to breathe, and so the whole time we're trying to yell out to Onyx, my husband is crying and hysterical, and it was just one of the worst moments of my life.
I saw my whole family break that night.
Onyx's autopsy report doesn't pinpoint an exact cause or time of death, but the report does note the baby's skin was peeling, a condition doctors say means he likely died hours before he was delivered. But Parker consistently documents hearing a fetal heart rate. Medical records show the only time she indicated otherwise was seconds before calling 911.
We have a room full of baby stuff where the wall had Onyx's name on it. I couldn't go in that room for a year. I couldn't even go in. My wife couldn't even open the door.
Looking for answers after their son's death, the couple went to state health regulators for help in early 2023. For months, they heard nothing. until the Anne Arundel State's Attorney's Office also asked regulators to look into the Burns' complaint. Then, on January 10, 2024, more than a year after their son's death, the Board of Physicians barred Parker from practicing naturopathic medicine in Maryland. 8 days later, the board charged her with misrepresenting herself and practicing without a license. We tried several times to reach Parker by phone and email to ask her about these allegations and the board's decision. We have not received a response. In these charging documents obtained by WUSA9, the Board of Physicians found Parker continuously gave Janelle Burns medical advice as a doctor, even though her license was expired. The documents also claim Parker saw at least 4 other patients for pediatric newborn appointments without being licensed by the board.
I honestly am fearful for anybody who comes into contact with Kai Parker from this day forward.
These charges only address Parker's naturopathic license. The Burnses are still waiting for the Board of Nursing to look into their complaint against Parker's midwifery services.
The hospital did these for us. It was inspired by the theme of Onyx's room.
An investigation that could take years to complete.
We will love you always and forever, baby Onyx.
As the board works through a massive backlog of complaints.
I'm just praying that no other family has to endure the pain that we have, but I feel like it's almost inevitable.
Parker has a disciplinary hearing set for the end of the month with the Board of Physicians. Meantime, the backlog of complaints at the Board of Nursing, that stems from a 2021 data breach. A recent analysis of the board notes it would take 5 years to clear its backlog of complaints if no new complaints were filed. And it is taking months to even look at some of the highest priority complaints. A spokesperson tells me the board has made changes to address the problem. But somewhere in that backlog of complaints, there are allegations from other families who hired Parker. They say Parker took their money but never provided the midwifery services they paid for. You'll hear from those families tomorrow night at 6.
Last night on the news at 6, we told you about a Maryland physician and midwife under investigation by state regulators. Meanwhile, WUSA9 has learned of more allegations against her.
Yeah, several families say they want accountability after they paid the same midwife thousands of dollars to deliver their babies.
But instead of the beautiful home births they hoped for, they tell our Marcella Robertson they paid for care they never received.
Are you looking at me? Why are you looking like that?
She robbed us of a lot.
You looking at me?
I really wanted this to bloom into like a beautiful friendship.
We planned and we paid for this experience to be wonderful, and it just sucks the air out of the room for us.
In 2023, these two Maryland families both hired Kai Parker as their midwife. Parker's home birth agreement repeatedly refers to her as Dr. Kai Parker, a naturopathic physician and midwife. The families say those credentials are why they hired her. They paid Parker's $7,500 fee. They didn't know it at the time, but according to state records, Parker's license to practice naturopathic medicine expired in 2022.
I wanted to go the holistic route.
When Makai Ashley made the decision to deliver her baby at home, she and her parents met with Parker. A trusted family doctor recommended her.
She was very kind. She was very warm. We liked her.
But in complaints filed with the Maryland Board of Nursing and the Maryland Board of Physicians, the Ashley family details how Parker missed appointments and was difficult to get a hold of.
And we moved forward with it, giving her the benefit of the doubt.
Labor and birth are listed as part of Parker's home birth package, but Makai says much of her labor was without her midwife.
Towards the end of my labor, I get fed up and I just can't do it anymore. I don't know where she is. I'm fully prepared to just do it on my own, and what happens, happens.
The first-time mother says Parker finally showed up minutes before she gave birth to her baby boy. But the family tells WUSA9 the problems didn't stop there. Midwives in Maryland are required to report a baby's birth to the Division of Vital Records. They say that never happened, leaving Makai's now 5-month-old son with no birth certificate, no social security number, and no medical coverage.
The birth was never registered. No one outside of us telling them knows that this baby exists.
Yes, she's like, what is that?
Malachi and Shira Robinson were initially impressed with Parker.
When we got on the camera, she was like, you know what, I'm your midwife. And I was like, you know what, she sounded really, really nice.
But after that, the couple says they only saw their midwife in person for one prenatal appointment. The rest were virtual or didn't happen at all.
I thought it was going to be more hands-on. It went downhill the last few weeks, months of my pregnancy. Those really essential appointments kept getting rescheduled, kept basically chasing her to make those appointments to get her to see me.
Still, the Robinsons moved forward with Parker, hoping the birth would be different.
Creating plan B, C, D, because we had already invested, the entire amount that we paid out to her.
They also filed official complaints with state health regulators. In those complaints, Shira describes laboring without her midwife.
I started pushing.
Without your midwife here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I called her like every 15, 20 minutes trying to get an update to see where she is. The app is saying it's time to go to the hospital. She said, well, I have to put my kids to sleep and I have to do this and I have to do that. So, I'll get to y'all when I can and, I'm on my way.
The Robinsons say Parker made it in time to deliver their baby, but never showed up to the postpartum checkups promised in the home birth package.
Next day after that, I didn't hear anything. Then it started going. Day after that, I didn't hear anything.
It's like she just disappeared.
The couple says it was weeks before they heard from Parker again. During that time, they found Parker's midwifery license was still active in Maryland, but her license as a naturopathic doctor expired more than a year before they hired her.
Verbally, and of course her website, everything just mentioned that she is a licensed practitioner and a physician.
It was really a smack in the face. It really broke my heart.
When we dug further into Parker's background, we learned on January 10th, 2024, the Maryland Board of Physicians barred Parker from practicing naturopathic medicine in Maryland. 8 days later, the board charged Parker for practicing without a license and misrepresenting herself as a doctor. The board's disciplinary panel is set to hear the case in late April. But those charges stem from an investigation into Parker underway before the Robinsons and Ashleys ever went to state regulators for help. Both families still waiting to speak with both agencies about their complaints. WUSA9 tried several times to reach Parker by phone and email to ask about these allegations. We have not heard back. Despite disciplinary action from one agency, we found Parker is still licensed in other jurisdictions, something these families say needs to change.
She should not be practicing medicine. She should not have the opportunity to have life and death in our hands.
We really just want accountability. We don't want her to see her practice. We don't want to see her do this to another family.
Parker is still licensed as a midwife in Virginia and as a naturopathic physician in D.C. The Board of Health in D.C. tells me there is an automatic review anytime there is disciplinary action in another jurisdiction, but it's unclear how long that review process takes. As of today, Parker's license in D.C. is still active. There are more allegations against Parker from other families. You can hear their stories on WUSA9.com.